Hey everybody, it's Rothbard's Disciple here, and I wanted to make a video where I criticize the developers again, and the reason why I want to criticize the developers is twofold. There's two big main reasons that I want to criticize them, and it all has to do with the fact that I really feel like they're not helping to spread Bitcoin adoption, okay? And if you look at transaction volume, that really seems to be the case. In a bear market, you should still see at least some transaction volume increase, um, and we're really not seeing much of any. And if you think about it, like since Bitcoin Cash has come out, not that much exists that didn't exist beforehand. Now there actually are some interesting things coming out in tokens, and this is the most um, work that I've ever seen done on Bitcoin in like a 1 year period in my life. But again, if you look at the other years of Bitcoin, it's all been like things have gotten worse for Bitcoin during those years. So just to say that things got better this year is not like, that doesn't mean much. The developers shouldn't be super excited about that. But the two main reasons that I really hate them, okay, they have to do with the fact that one, a lot of developers, in fact, most developers work on applications. They always call them on-chain applications, but they're not on-chain applications. They're just mentally retarded systems that are designed not to scale, okay? And what I mean by this is they build systems that they say, oh, this is uncensorable, and then they put full files on the blockchain, okay? You never put a full file on the blockchain. This is probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, and the reason why is the same reason that Satoshi, like, a Bitcoin transaction can be traced back to the first Bitcoin transaction, okay? Did Satoshi include in every transaction the full detailed history of every transaction? No. He included the hash so then you can go back and look up that information if you want to, but all he ever included was the hash, okay? If you're not putting the hash in Bitcoin, it doesn't belong there. And the reason why is very simple. Okay, let's say I'm trying to put, you know, a video on the blockchain and it's a couple gigabytes. I honestly have no idea how big videos are. Let's say it's 2 gigabytes. So I'm trying to put a 2 gigabyte video or whatever on the blockchain, and if I put the goddamn 2 gigabyte video, the upper max carrier size is 220 bytes. If it's 2 gigabytes, that's like what, 20,000 transactions? Like that's fucking stupid. Okay, that's one, that's fucking stupid. I don't know why anyone would talk about that, but that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Two, the next thing people are going to talk about is compression, okay? So one, if you start going from, hey, we're not going to put the actual full file on the blockchain, we're going to compress it a little bit, why don't you just compress it into a fucking hash, which is always 64 bytes. And just so you guys know, a hash, when it comes out, it's a random string of 64 characters. That's how long it is always, no matter what, and it's a fingerprint. So whatever file you put in, the hash that comes out to it, it's unique. So it's 64 characters and it's unique no matter what, okay? So just like the file itself distinguishes itself, the hash itself distinguishes itself. So you literally accomplish everything by putting the hash on the blockchain. Now a lot of people are going to be like, "Well, if the hash is on the blockchain, how do you get it?" It's like, "Okay, listen up guys. If you put the hash on the blockchain, then the hash is like obviously the hash is not enough to distribute the file, but it's enough for anyone who wants to have the file distributed to them to verify if they got the right file, okay? And so then that means that all that the hash on the blockchain does is it acts as evidence for you to check whether or not the service that you're using is censoring you, okay? And so obviously since these services are all digital, this whole thing's going to be fucking automated. So if they are censoring you, you turn them off. Okay? You literally don't have to do anything other than right before you want to watch the video, if you want to check and see if it's the real video, you check the hash against the blockchain, you look that up in a matter of milliseconds, boom, you're done. That's it. Now you know whether or not the video you got has been censored. And if it has been censored, you drop that hosting provider, okay? You go to a different hosting provider. So if you're using YouTube and you want to watch a particular video of mine, and you want to check if it's been censored, your computer will just check on the blockchain in a couple of milliseconds before you watch the video, see if it's the correct hash. If it's the correct hash of, if the hash on the blockchain matches the hash of the video that you're currently watching, then guess what? Boom, you're good to go. Okay? But if not, then you don't watch it. And it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. I don't get it. I don't get it. Now, the second issue here is it has to do with like the tokenization and things that people are building. I really don't fucking understand what people think tokenization is useful for. Like, I understand when people are building it for stocks and bonds and, securities, financial stuff, things like that. That makes sense, okay? The problem with this is, though, that things like financial stuff, stocks, bonds, securities, rewards cards, coupons, tickets, shit like this already exists, and it costs almost nothing already, okay? So you're competing in markets where it costs pennies to do. It costs pennies to provide the service, and sorry, I'm a little bit tired. I've been working real hard lately, but it costs pennies to provide the services that we're competing with. So it's going to take years to get people to trust Bitcoin enough to move over, because when they move over, that's a huge fucking amount of work. So initially, it's massive losses transferring people over to Bitcoin. Okay, massive losses, because the things that we're transferring them over for, the costs for them already are dropped down to pennies, and so we're going to drop the cost down to a fraction of pennies, and so it takes a while to recoup those losses, okay? And so there's huge resources in transferring all your systems, training all your people to use Bitcoin. Huge resources. You're only saving fractions of cents for the services you're providing. So the issue here is, we're not providing any massive reason for anyone to come over. There's no magic to Bitcoin in the way that we're using it. I've said before that there's magic to the tokens, but there's not magic to the tokens in the way we're using them. Okay, so I want to show you from the token standpoint, because obviously, I can't lecture you forever on the other half of this problem, because there's two halves of the problems with the Bitcoin developers. It's the way they build tokens, and it's the fact that they think that on-chain means you don't use hashes, but that's fucking retarded. But in terms of the tokens, I can actually show you the issue here, and I'm going to show you this in a different way, because usually I use my own work, guys. But I'm going to show you one of my favorite video games. It's also probably a video game you guys don't really know about. Nobody plays it. As of right now in North America, it has a player base of about 30, and I think the company invested tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into this video game, so it's kind of, not very good for that company. But the one thing that's always boggled my mind, and this is actually something that got me interested in the idea of tokenization on Bitcoin early on, is how easily tokenization would work for this game. Now, the game is called Battleborn. It's a game or at least I play it on Xbox. I think it's available on all platforms. Again, the player base is super fucking low. I think it's free, so I wouldn't necessarily spend money on it, because finding it, you have to play at the right time of day to even have a chance of finding a game. It's ridiculous. But I love the game. Now, the thing that I love about this game is that it's a MOBA. So if any of you guys have played things like Smite or I can't even think, Legends. What are they? Dota. I don't know what the Legends game is. There's a game called Legends or some shit like that, but Dota's one of them. Dota 2. I think there's a lot of Dotas actually. Um, Defense Against the Ancients or whatever. I haven't played that many MOBAs other than Battleborn. The thing that excited me about Battleborn is it's a first-person MOBA, so you don't have that view from up top. I never really liked that view from up top. But anyways, the other thing that really excites me about this is obviously when you level up, there's a lot of different options. Now, I was super excited when this game came out because there's a lot of different options, so you'd think there's a lot of different ways you can play. But one of the things you'll notice is that if you look at this level up sheet here, obviously I'm not showing all the options, but there's actually 10 levels, and at 5 of the levels you have 2 options, and 5 of the levels you have 3 options. So what this actually works out to is, there's thousands of actual combinations between one character that you can level them up using, okay? And so what excites me about this is the number of possible ways you can interact with these different choices here, okay, and the way that they can be used together to create competitive characters. Now, the issue here is with Battleborn, they made so little money with the game, or they made so they didn't make much money at all, obviously. Okay, there's literally a player count of like 30 right now, and it costs them hundreds of millions of dollars. So they didn't have the development money to keep on updating these level up trees. So the issue that came out is that now, there's not that many people that play, and everyone who plays usually is really good. It's only the people who, in the beginning, when there were a few thousand players, were the top players. It's basically the only top players are still there. But anyways, the issue is that the top level of play, it's not balanced, and there's like these level up trees, you have to pick specific ones because one of them's stronger than others, and it's almost always like there's only a couple characters that you can play in multiple ways. Ambra, the character that we're looking at right now, and this is actually an old video of mine, and this is where I got the name Cauliflower Man. If you look in the top left, it was my old Xbox name. But anyways, Umbra is one of the few characters that you actually get a couple of different options for here. But again, obviously, you know, you see those pictures there of the different level ups here, and this is just a couple of them. But there's a bunch of different ways you could play this character. And this character is a healer, and the second level up here is probably the perfect or not perfect explanation, but perfect example of what I'm talking about. There's two options here. She has this healing ability called her sunspot, and later on the sunspot becomes a real great way to heal people. But there's two options here that allows you to place the sunspot down, and it'll explode basically immediately and either give you a lot of healing or do a lot of damage. The problem is that when you do the math, the numbers are so wrong here that these just are never competitive options, okay? And so the thing that you can do here with tokenization, okay, and this is what pisses me off about tokenization, is tokenization only focuses on stocks and bonds, and the way that they focus on tokenization for IP is so fucking boring, okay? Like this thing I've been talking to you guys about, I call it reverse ICOs or reverse securitization. There's not really anybody pushing for it, okay? And again, this thing I'm going to show you guys, like nobody else, you can't do this without tokenization. And what I'm going to show you guys is, imagine if Battleborn just released some sort of real quick app that allowed you as a player to change these options here, okay, for each one of these level ups. So we go back to Umbra here, and we go to these level ups, and you look at it. So for level 1, the left side, it says if you damage anybody by your sunspot, they take 16% more damage. The right one, if you damage them by your solar wind, they burn for 121 damage over 3 seconds. Now, imagine if they created some sort of app, okay, and they have these tokens, and these tokens are called like editor tokens, and you pay Battleborn some money, right? Let's say you pay them $5 or $10, and they give you this app. This app allows you to change these level ups, so you can change the left side. Instead of it saying, okay, enemies damaged by a sunspot take increased damage over time, instead of it saying 16% damage amplification over 4 seconds, you could change those. So you would be able to change the percentage of damage amplification and the time, okay? And if you go to the right, maybe you can change the damage and the time as well. Okay, if you go to this second option here, the left option, it allows you to increase healing 30%. Maybe you can change how much healing it increases. The middle option, you can change how much the burst heal is. The right option, you can change how much the burst damage is. Now, the way that you get this to work with tokens and hashes is very simple, because what we want to do is we want to allow people to change each one of these options, right? Because, and the whole reason you want to allow your community to change these options is because when you do the math, for each character there's thousands of options within their level up alone, and then there's 30 characters. Now, if you're trying to balance out, you know, these characters, when you give them that many level up options and different ways to build the characters, like it's gonna be kind of impossible to some extent. So the best way to deal with this is just to throw as many tries at it as you can, okay? So you don't want to have a couple people with access to change this and only have a couple of testers. You want to have as many testers as you can. So what you do is you create this, you create a secondary game for Battleborn, right? And Battleborn's already, like, they've made like no money, so they want to make money. And the community would probably, the community that plays, like, they love the fucking game. And this is literally my favorite game in the world. Nobody plays it, and they can't update it, so it sucks. I wish I could update it, because I could probably do well myself. I know there's a bunch of other really great players, like some of the players that play that game, they're fucking nuts how good they are. But anyways, they could really probably do some good work in terms of balancing the game out and making it more competitive and more fun to play. But all that you do is you create a token, right? Okay, and you create a token for each character here that exists. Okay, so there's obviously all these characters here. The one we're looking at is Umbra, the one in the top left. You create a token for Umbra, right? And this token will be the equivalent, or it'll equal the rights to change that version of Umbra. Okay, so Gearbox is the company that created Umbra. Gearbox will have its own version of the token, and this is the official Gearbox token that or that allows you, or that controls the stats for Umbra when you play the actual Gearbox game. Okay, what this app would do is it would allow people to create their own token anytime they wanted to edit any one of these characters. So if you had you have this token for Umbra, right? If you wanted to edit something for Umbra, like let's say we go back to her character to her second level up, the one that we said needed to be changed. As you can see from my old video, uh, the what I put in there is that you needed at least a base healing of 400 for the middle choice, and a base damage of 400 for the right choice for them to be viable. So I could go into there to this app, okay, and again I have this, I just basically pay for this token from Battleborn, and this token that I pay for is just a token that will allow me to edit this, or to edit all this information here again. And again, the token is just the rights, okay? So they have to build this app themselves. So you pay for the token. The token is just like paying for any sort of account membership anywhere, except now you have the token, so it's on the blockchain, so that you know you don't have to worry about them just having it within their records themselves. But you have this token, and then you download the software, and then from that token you will alter that original token that they give you in order to create your own tokens. Okay, so let's say once I change these stats here, and I've changed the base healing of the middle option to 400 and the base damage of the right option to 400. Maybe that's all I want to change at all. Okay, so then I create a new token for this version of Umbra. Now, if I ever want to release this for other people to use, I actually will release this token with it. And again, the reason you release the token is so that it's basically like signing something as your own authorship. So your own signature is, basically within that token, or somehow your identity is within that token. And so it links back to you. And the one thing that is real big on this is right now, again, Battleborn, like I told you guys, they spent tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars on making this game. I don't know, it was a shitload. But they didn't make much of any, or they made almost no money, so nobody can update this stuff right now. But if you gave this app, people would pay to update the game of Battleborn. So they would make Battleborn a better game, and they would pay the company to do it. Okay, think about that. This is a completely new use case. Now, if we go back to the stocks and bonds example, how many use cases are there where stocks and bonds are already offered, and what's the how hard is it to compete in those markets? Well, it's really hard to compete in those markets because there's a lot of products that offer that use case. But if you look at this, how many products offer a use case where you can take a game that is dying and doesn't have enough money for developers to keep updating it and keep the competitive gameplay, or keep the gameplay and matchmaking competitive? Like, how many options do they have to make money keeping that gameplay competitive? There's none, except for if they were to tokenize it on the blockchain and just give somebody an app. And again, all the app has to do is change the damage or change the stats on their level ups. Now, obviously, you have to find some way to integrate that within your game so that you can upload the new stats into your new game version. But they used to do this with, or they used to allow you to do things like that with Halo and whatnot. But again, what tokenization allows you to do that is completely different is it allows this company to then take the, like let's say somebody comes up with a real good stats, and Gearbox wants to use their stats rather than the stats that Gearbox is using. Then Gearbox can pay this person, and they can track it all through the tokens that this person made. And again, the Gearbox can already have a contract with this person who changed the stats, and they might say, hey, look, for every game that gets played using your stats, we'll pay you, 1 cent, 2 cents. I don't know. I don't honestly know how that math would work, but they'll pay you some small amount just for the work that you've done. Yeah, and especially if you think about it, because people would be paying for the app and paying for the opportunity to change the stats of the games they're playing in. Gearbox would still make money even if they pay the people whose stats that they use. So again, Why don't the developers focus on something like this, which is a completely new way to use Bitcoin? Fuck if I know. I mean, if you look at any of the token protocols right now, they're getting there. They're getting better, yeah, but there's still no token protocol that allows me to send a token and change the hash associated with that token. Can't be fucking done. And you can't do any of this without being able to send a token and change the hash of that token, because obviously, um, well, you can do some of it, I guess. But if you're trying to send ownership of a good, like let's say if you were talking about ownership of like if you wanted to pay a user of the app who had changed the stats for the game, the best way to do it is through sending a token and changing the hash of that token of this at the same time. Because what you do is you send a token that says, hey, this person is like now gets this profit. They're entitled to the profits that that token represents. And then when you change the hash, you say they're entitled to the profits that this token represents because of the work that they did when they changed this hash. Okay? And so it's all like none of that is included all in one in any token protocol as far as I know. Like none of it. I don't know. It boggles my mind, boys. It boggles my mind. Because if you look at this, I mean, how many video games could this apply to? There's probably hundreds. Video game industry's kind of big, you know what I mean? And it's like, nah, we're not focusing on that. We're doing other shit, you know. We're making fucking incredibly expensive incredibly expensive versions of Twitter that we say are censorship resistant, except the only way to prove it's censorship resistant is to check each tweet you write and then check it against the blockchain yourself. It's like that's the crowning achievement of the Bitcoin application developers, and it's a fucking joke. But that's my rant.